A big part of innovation is prototyping and experimenting. And in this video, we're going to talk a bit about some examples of prototyping, experimenting, what the difference is, and how you can apply some of these principles, the principles behind prototyping and experimenting, to any challenge out there. To take an idea from something that's in your head or on a piece of paper into the real wide world. Now, we hear the word prototyping or rapid prototyping a lot in tech. But a lot of the principles behind prototyping can be applied to any challenge, whether you're working on a product, on a service, on a process. The principles can be applied anywhere. And I'm a big believer of having an experimenting mindset or a prototyping mindset. That is a mindset of saying, I have an idea, I've got something there. How do I make this real as soon as possible, as cheap as possible, and as easy as possible? At its core, experimenting and prototyping are a way to take a concept or an idea from inception into something that is real and tangible. And that does a few things. It will help you communicate the idea so you can get feedback and you can get buy-in from people. And the other one is you can stress test it, because often on a piece of paper, things make complete sense until you start applying it into the real world, and then you find out, well, hang on, it doesn't quite work as we thought it was going to work. Those are all little bits of learning, and those little bits of learning you then apply back and you iterate, you create a new prototype, a new model, a new version, and you make it better and better and better. God, I keep having to adjust the light. It's so cloudy, it's annoying. It's like dark light, dark light. I should just use my lighting. Anyway, I'm just gonna plow on. Now this, of course, is a process. It's not like you create you do one little test, you create one prototype and boom, that's it. I mean, a famous story is James Dyson, who created the Cyclone bagless vacuum cleaner. It took him 15 years and 5,127 prototypes, which started with just stuff he had in the house, some pieces of paper and a bucket with a stick inside. That's how we started. And with each and every version, he learned some new things and he iterated his idea. I'm not saying you should do 5,000 iterations of any idea that you have. I'm just trying to tell you that rather than waiting really long to have a really good prototype, it's all about what can I do right here, right now with the stuff around me so I can test this idea and take it out to some people and collect some feedback. That's what it's all about. So let's give you a few examples on how you can make your ideas real as soon as possible in a way that's fairly cheap and fairly easy. Here goes. So let's say you have an idea for a physical product. Well, there's a couple of ways you can go and experiment with that. A low fidelity mock-up would be to have a product which you've, let's say, typed up and turn it into a visual rendering. A lot of our videos, I'll show you that I'll do quick doodles and quick drawings. Now there's a my version, which is very simple, kind of back of a napkin kind of style. Maybe you can bring in somebody who's an artist or a visualizer that can turn it into something that looks a lot more realistic. Or let's take that one step further. Let's say that you have a product. Can you find somebody, maybe you can do this yourself, to turn this into a 3D rendering on screen so you can look around and see what it looks like? That could be one. You can take it even one step further and turn it into an actual physical kind of prototype to test this functionality. I know lots of cities around the world will now have maker labs or maker spaces that have a whole bunch of equipment and materials available for you to turn an idea into something real. So these are a few examples to turn a product from kind of something that's in your head into a prototype. Now, once you have that prototype, take it to people, have a chat, get some feedback, and then make it better. But even with digital products, so let's say you have an idea for an app, for a program, or the lowest fidelity one I did a couple of weeks ago is something that's on a post-it you take a picture of, and it's just a quick screenshot of what that app could potentially look like, and you use that to communicate. You can, of course, turn this into a bit more complex thing, like let's say a click dummy that actually looks like the app, just to give you an idea about the functionality of what the app could look like. Or you could actually build a first version of that app. Again, even if it's a digital product, you can go from a piece of paper with a picture to a wireframe or a click dummy into a higher fidelity, a more complex, let's say a more complex app that has a lot of the functions on it. But let's say it has nothing to do with a physical product. You're talking about a process. So let's say that you run a bunch of shops and stores and you want to improve the experience in the store. Well, there's a whole bunch of ways you can quickly experiment there as well. So one of the easiest ways to get started is just by doing something called a storyboard. So you can map out a journey by little pictures or little Maybe you turn it into collage, or maybe have somebody draw it up. But a storyboard tells a story that is on a piece of paper or on a board. But let's say you want to make that a bit more interesting and kind of up it a notch. Is that a word? Up it a notch? Crank it up a notch? But let's say you want to make that a bit more interesting. You want to crank it up a notch. You can go from a paper to looking, let's say you have a physical space, a physical store. Could you then, with some printing and different signage and rearranging the store, bring in some actors or some students from theater school to play roles within that shopping space, create a different experience, invite some people to go through it, and then ask them for their feedback? Or if you want to take that even further, you have an idea for a store but you don't actually have a space yet, that's where pop-up stores come in. Pop-up stores are a great way to test a concept test, a restaurant to test a store. Rather than ending up with having to sign a 2-3 year long lease and committing yourself to a big pot of money you have to pay, a pop-up store is an easy and fairly cheap way to test your ideas. Or you have an idea for a new service. Well, a very low fidelity prototype would be, let's say that you made a flyer and you say, here's what we're doing, here's what we have to offer. Maybe give an indication of pricing, hand some out to people and say, would you be interested in this and how much would you pay for that? When the founders of Zappos had this idea of an online store, keep in mind Zappos started 20 years ago. So what they did was they went into the stores, they took pictures of shoes, they put them on a website, they bought a cheap web domain, they built a quick landing page, put the pictures up there and decided to sell them online. And by the time people said, yes, I'll buy the pair of shoes, they'll click on buy, they then went back into the store, bought the actual pair of shoes, package it and send it to the person who ever bought the shoes. So those are just some examples of how you can experiment. There are, however, a few watch out for you. There's a few enemies to experimenting and prototyping, which particularly in big business and big organizations, I see a lot. First of all, you're overthinking it. Your first prototype does not have to be perfect. It does not have to come with a feasibility report, and it doesn't have to look super slick. And the second one is related to the first one, is not prototyping and experimenting soon enough. Very often people wait way too long until they have something that looks really good. Not about that. And if you want to test yourself, the next time you have an idea, give yourself 5 minutes. Say in 5 minutes, how can I turn this concept into something that's real and get some feedback? 5 minutes. The third one, thinking the idea is the same as the person and therefore taking it very personal. If somebody criticizes some of your work, it doesn't mean that they're criticizing you. So it's about detaching it. It's just a rough and ready idea. Be prepared that people are going to shoot holes in it. People are going to tell you why it's a shit idea, and that's okay. You want to learn from that one. And the fourth one is selling the prototype. I see this so often. A team has been working, it's their baby. They're passionate about it. They love it. They know it in and out. That by the time they start experimenting, getting people's feedback, they sometimes end up selling the idea. They try to justify that this idea is right and why you should invest in it and why you should buy it. But the point of experimentation is not to get it right. It's about learning. So look at where you can prototype, you can experiment in your life. Are you arranging your apartment? Get some Lego blocks and play with Lego blocks first before you start rearranging everything. Do you need to come up with a strategy to get your NGO out there? Take some napkins and draw your version 1 strategy on the back of a napkin and take that to people and get some feedback. If you always wanted to play an instrument but you're not really sure whether you should invest in a piano, rent one. There are quick and easy ways to find out whether this is the right thing for you. Experimentation and prototyping to me is more a mindset than anything else. It's the mindset of how do I make it real as fast as possible? How do I test it and get some feedback as soon as possible? And as you go, you learn and therefore you make it better. Like always, guys, this is just food for thought. It's a bit of stimulus for you. There is no right way. The sky is the limit. Steer with glee and get experimenting, get prototyping. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you have and you like what we did over here, hit that like button below. If you want to see more of these videos, because we make weekly videos on topics that are directly and indirectly related to innovation and creativity, hit that subscribe button below and we'll see you here. Yes, you. We'll see you here next time. Excited and all. Happy weekend.